Let me do that. All right. So make sure, I would recommend that you not wait until the week before our next call. Most of you on this call still have one more book report to do. So you don't want, and there are some people that have more than one book report due. So, and that's okay. The whole idea was for me to try to keep everyone on task by doing one a month so that you don't get stuck doing all 6 pages, all 6 deals at one time. So don't wait till the week before. All right. And it's summertime. Who wants to be doing book work during the summer, right? And a couple of you here, I'm seeing 2 of you, 3 of, well, yeah, are going to be with us at camp in 11 days. So that's going to be an exciting time. So we got a lot of things to do. You don't want to get stuck right at the last minute trying to finish all the deals. And I will need those to be turned in on time because I need to send all of this to Cleveland, and so that they can get us all of our certificates before the General Assembly. Because if we wait till after the General Assembly, there's going to be all this transition and things will get forgotten about. And so we want to make sure that that we get it all done. Okay. All right. So let me ask you guys, does anybody want to volunteer a few comments over what they read this past month on your reading that you did this month? Anybody?
So I'm thinking Jed's probably working, but let's just say Jed's off. If Jed's off, she's not good.
Said that the youth ministry nuts and bolts was like a textbook. I would liken it to the phone book.
Yes.
It is rough.
Yes, that will be my first suggestion on the for the next iteration of this program, that we remove that book.
Well, she said
I actually kind of felt like that nuts and bolts. That's the book I read too. It was kind of very similar to the first 2 years in youth ministry a little bit. Like I felt like there was some overlap in those two. So I think both of them had a lot of good information, but I feel like there was enough overlap in both of them that I think, like you said, you could probably keep one and get rid of the other, or maybe find something a little bit else. So, but I did find it was very informative. But yeah, I would agree. It was very, very heavy, very much like reading a phone book or a dictionary.
by ourselves and whatever.
Whenever anybody asks me what books I recommend for new youth pastors, it's always 100%. It's always first 2 years in youth ministry. And that book is, I mean, it's, I don't even know, I don't have it in front of me. It's at least 20 years old, but it is such a good read. And I try to read it myself every couple of years. And I'm not even in local church ministry currently. So it's a good book. But like you said, Duffy's book is it's pretty hefty. So if you left that one till your last month, I'm sorry. Anyone else have something they want to add? It's going to be a short call tonight.
I would definitely reiterate what everyone else has stated in regards to nuts and bolts. I actually am reading that as one of my last books, and I already started, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I really do enjoy just seeing, everything kind of like unfold and the tying in of the information. But right now I did enjoy communicating for change. I'm a big advocate of communication approach style, and really reading and feeding your audience. So I really thought that that was very tangible.
And that's a very easy read. That's what I appreciated about it. I mean, it wasn't, it was almost a booklet, but it had such good information in it. And I'm like you that I, um, communication is so important in what we do. And in all of my years that I have been preaching, been teaching, I started youth ministry. I started as a youth pastor when I was 19. And so through all of these years, just like you said, fighting for people's attention, it almost has become second nature. I don't even think about it now when I'm preaching and speaking. I'm trying to make eye contact with everyone in the room. That used to be a daunting task when you would be in a large room with several hundred people. But it now has just become second nature. And the more that you do it, the easier it becomes. That you just, and I'll watch videos of myself just so I can see how I can hone my craft and get better at speaking. And I watch and I can see my eyes and I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm watching myself. I'm like, now the hard part for me is that my ADD gets in the way. And if I notice that somebody is sleeping or there is someone that is just they're doing something other than what I want them to be doing at the time, I struggle with that. And sometimes I end up stopping my process and I focus on that one person and try my best to get them to focus, and we make that eye contact. Now, if they're sleeping, you don't really have a choice. But I learned a long time ago not to get offended by that. My father-in-law had sleep apnea, and so he didn't sleep well at night. And because of that, church was the perfect place to fall asleep. So sometimes that doesn't have anything to do with your communication skills. It really has more to do with what they're dealing with. All right. What about Sticky Faith? Did anybody read that this month? That's one of those books that it was a really good one as well. And really talking about how to present the gospel in a way that people gravitate toward it. And to not only have your own faith stick, but also helping others get through what they're dealing with and their walk with the Lord. So that's a really good one too. Kara Powell, anything that you can read by Kara Powell is, you just soak it up. She's great. She's a professor, I think, at Fuller, and she's fantastic as well. So all right. Well,
I read Sticky Faith last month,
yes.
and so it kind of made me, he read it this month. I read it last month, but it kind of made me sad when I started reading it and the statistics about people that leave church and kids that leave church. And so this is kind of where we're at with our group. We had 11 kids graduate from high school this year, and we don't want to lose them. And we don't have a good next step at our church. We have our youth group, which is great and growing and wonderful. And then we have a young adult group. It's like late 20s, early 30s, and there's no in between. And so we really don't want to lose these kids that are going off to college and are going to the workforce. And so we've actually met with our youth team after I read this and said, hey, y'all, we can't lose these kids. We have to make their faith stick. And they're like, what is Mandy talking about? But we've actually created a college and career group, and we're going to try to, I know that's a hard group to reach to and to make stay, but we're really trying to focus on getting a group made for them, having a place that they belong, reaching out to them, making relationships with them. And I really felt that book helped kind of show the importance of that. So that's something that we took from that reading.
That is a big problem that a lot of churches are having. And it's not a new problem. When I youth pastored, and it's, I got out of local church ministry 8 years ago this August. And so before then, I'd been a youth pastor for 2 decades. And the church that I was in Florida, we had a similar situation. What I was finding is that when our students were graduating from high school, they were graduating from their faith. And statistically, they were not returning. They would not return until they were married and had kids of their own. And they realized, I need to get back in church. My kids need to be in church like I was, you know. And a lot can happen from high school until that you have a child. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. So we didn't have the luxury. I didn't have the luxury of having people in our church. I couldn't really find anyone to head up our college and career class. And I didn't feel like I had the time or the resources to do that myself. So what we did, because for us, it was once you graduated from high school on Wednesday nights, the next step for you was the pastor's Bible study. I mean, I don't know an 18-year-old that wants to do that. You know, you go from all the frou-frou of youth ministry to having to sit in the pastor's Bible study. And so there was nowhere for them to go. So what we decided to do, and I've actually had several churches that have implemented this or a version of it. We created an internship program. So for the first year out of high school, we allowed you to stay in the youth group until school started in August or September. So you got to go on any mission trips or anything like that we had the summer after you graduated. But in September, we began an internship program. It was a year long, and you could remain in the youth group, but you were in the role of an intern. And what that meant was, number one, the first 90 days of the internship, you actually had to read the Bible front to back in 90 days.
Can be done. It can be done.
It can be. Zondervan actually makes a book called The Bible in 90 Days. So we would give that to our students. And it basically would come down to about 11 to 12 pages a day, okay, of reading the Bible.
Done it already. Can be done.
Yeah. And 12 pages does not seem like a lot until you miss a day or two. And 12 is a long way from 24. And it's even further from 36. So, you know, you didn't want to get behind. But what that did for us is it weeded out those that were not serious about it. Because after those 3 months, if they made it through, and that was their only job, they could stay in the youth group, be a leader. They had to read that in 90 days. But then the next step was they had to be in charge of a ministry in the youth ministry. Okay. Something that they took charge of. And if we didn't have a ministry that they felt like they could lead, then we would create one for them. We would walk them through that process of creating that. So it could be something like we had one intern that was our worship leader. We had another one that ran our snack bar. That was their ministry. We had another one that their job was follow up. They were completely in charge of contacting all the students and especially our guests every week. And that was, that was a deal. So whatever, we would find something for them to be in charge of. Then they had to be involved in a ministry in our church that was outside of the youth ministry. That way they weren't just completely in the youth ministry vacuum. Sometimes our students get stuck in just doing the frou-frou of youth ministry. They need to understand that they need to give back to the church as well, not just the youth ministry. So that could be the choir, or they might work with our janitor, which we jokingly called him the Bishop of Beautification. Maybe they were in charge of driving the golf cart in the parking lot to bring people to the sanctuary, or maybe they were just doing parking lot duty. Whatever it was, they had to be in a ministry within the church. Okay. And then they had to read a book a month. After that 90 days, they had to read a book a month that I gave them. Some of these books that are on your list were on their list. And then after that year, after they had completed the year, if they wanted to continue to be in the youth ministry as a youth leader, we would have a meeting with our youth leaders and we would discuss their fitness of being a youth leader. And if we felt like that they could handle the job, then we did this big ceremony on Sunday mornings in front of the church where we had the youth leaders come up on the stage and we welcomed this former intern, now youth leader, into the fold of our youth leadership. And that was what we did instead of having a college and career ministry, because we weren't successful in it. Doesn't mean it can't be successful, but we didn't have success. And I could not sleep at night thinking that I had lost these students after graduation.
Something like that, the texture.
Any thoughts from anybody?
We weren't in charge of the youth group at our church, but we did start a college career readiness because we had a large group of kids at our church who were graduating, and we kind of felt the same thing, what are they going to do next? And some of them were going to college, a couple hours even away from home, so they weren't going to be home on weekends. Some of them went straight to work, so they were going to be around, but yet they were kind of feeling that like they weren't ready for the main sanctuary all the time, but yet they were kind of, the next group of youth group was really a lot younger than them, so they kind of felt out of place there. And we did, like a small group kind of thing. And we did like Zoom calls for the ones who were away at college. And even when we did them at like 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday mornings, it was amazing to see the college kids get up and be on their dorm beds with their phone or their computers, participating in this Bible study and having their dorm mates even, chime in on the conversation. And then we had a Facebook group, and we did prayer requests, and we did like thankful Thursdays, what happened this week that was good for you. And we sent them care packages, and a lot of them still are in weekly or at least monthly contact. And just that's what they needed. They needed to know that they were more than just their attendance at the church. They needed to know that they were part of that family. And so just anything, even like those little bracelets, the little beaded bracelet kind of things, we would put anointing oil on them and we would send them and tell them what we did. And, it's kind of not an anointing cloth, but like, hey, finals are coming up, wear this and know when you look down at it that someone's praying for you. And sometimes that's kind of all they need. Like, they don't have to be in the building every weekend. They don't have to, be part of a special group. They just have to be part of the family still.
We actually met with our graduates. So we had a luncheon, like a graduation lunch for our 11 graduates. And we actually asked them, what do y'all want to see? What do y'all want to do? Because this is your class. This is your, what we're doing for you. So every single one of them come back to us, even individually, not even just there, and said they wanted something more personal. They wanted to do more like a Bible study type thing on Wednesday nights, and where we could do like student-led Bible studies, and then we can do leader-led Bible studies. And they wanted us to continue doing activities with them and doing stuff like that. And to piggyback on back what she said, we're planning on doing like the care packages. And we actually have one student that he's wanting to go into ministry, and he's going to he's going to a Wingate University. It's about an hour away from here. And he's actually reached out to us and saying, once I get there, well, I want to start a Bible study there. And maybe once a quarter or something, y'all can come up here to us and we can hold a Bible study on campus. And so we actually got our group together and asked them, what would you like to see? Because we can do whatever we want, but if it ain't what they want to do, it's pointless.
Absolutely. That's a great point. All right, I just want to give anybody the opportunity to share. This is this was not even planned. This was really great that we talk about the transition from youth ministry and what happens. I know throughout my years, there were so many times that I felt like a failure because we had invested all of this time and all of these, for some of the students, all of these years of them being in middle school and high school, we invested in them. We've gone to their games, to their recitals. We've gone, and then to have them leave the ministry and to even sometimes make the dumb decisions that they would make, it was disheartening at times. But I tell people often that that youth ministry is probably one of the more thankless ministries in the church. You know, when you're working with kids, when you're working with children, you know, a lot of times those kids will thank you because they're still polite. And their parents might tell them, you need to go thank them. You need to go thank Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. You need to go tell them, you know, or the parents will say thank you. And not that it's about, you know, the accolades, not that we need to be thanked, but at least it makes you feel like that you're making an effort and that you're actually accomplishing something. But in youth ministry, a lot of times we have students whose parents aren't connected to the church. And so they don't even know you really exist as the leader. Sometimes you have parents that are the reason that their kids are messed up. Hello. And they want you to fix them. I'm amazed at the parents that will, you know, at best, we will have them 3 hours a week on average, and they want us to fix them. And we're like, you've had them for 16 years. What can I do that you know, that you should have done and didn't, you know? And sometimes there are situations you can have really great parents and their kids are messed up too, you know, so it's not always a parent problem. But youth ministry, you know, there are a lot of night hours that you do things. You don't typically do things at night with the children, but we do that with youth ministry. A lot of out of the way hours of youth ministry, and sometimes you may never get a thank you from a kid ever in their whole life. You just have to know that you did what was right by them and that you cared for them the best way that the Lord prepared you to do. And sometimes, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes you'll get a kid who gets into the ministry, or they'll call you years after they've left your group and they're like, hey, I'm getting married. Would you do the ceremony? Would you marry us? Or maybe it's not even that big of a thing. Maybe you just get an invitation to their wedding. You hadn't thought about them in 5 years, but you get an invitation to their wedding. Or just out of the blue, you may get a phone call from them or a text that says, you know what? I just wanted to say thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the hours that you dedicated to me, that you helped me get through my teenage years. I never told you in the moment, but I just wanted you to know now that I appreciate you. And not that it's about that, but sometimes that makes it worth a while. Sometimes that's a good feeling when you get that. And I've had the privilege of having a couple of those moments throughout my ministry. And again, not that you do it for that, but it's in those moments that the Lord uses those moments to remind you, this is what I've called you to. And you're good at it. I've called you to this. I'm going to equip you to do it. And you're making a difference. So that's what I want to leave with you guys here tonight, to let you know that you guys are making a difference. What you do matters. It's important. It's extremely important. Youth ministry is so much harder than it was when I was a teenager. It's so much harder than now than when I was a youth pastor starting out. And so it's important, it matters, and you all are making a difference. Before we close this out today, I just want to give anybody an opportunity to add something or to encourage anybody.
Egg and cheese and muffins and sausage.
All right. You guys are a great bunch of encouragers. Well,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I would like to say something. I was actually facing quite a challenge within the last week or so in planning or organizing an event for our youth group. And sometimes in the moments of difficulties, we always tend to allow for our emotions to kind of like overcompensate, you know, our thought process or reasoning or purpose behind what it is that we're called to do. And I had to really remind myself, and I just have a little reading. I just wanted to like read to everyone. God chose you for a reason. You are still called for this position, but remember that just like he endured feeling misunderstood and loneliness, so will we. Let this be your challenge to still be gracious in the midst of difficulty. You are serving as unto him. So for that, I had to like, you know, step back, recollect my thought process, and then be like, okay, this is really what I'm called to do. Challenges will come, but don't succumb to those challenges. Just try to, you know, strengthen and just look towards the goal, you know, and the purpose. So strive with purpose.
That's good. That's good.
And then.
I don't know how God speaks to you guys. I don't know how he encourages you. For me, a lot of times it's in readings like that. More times than that, though, I love music. And God speaks to me a lot of times through songs that I hear. There are lines in songs, and sometimes, believe it or not, it might not even be a Christian song. But the Lord can speak to you in those as well. And so just keep your ears open and listen. Keep your eyes open and watch and look for those moments of encouragement from the Lord. And it can be in a song that you have heard a million times, but it just hits different for you when you're going through a season in your life. So. Okay. All right. Well, let's look at our calendar to schedule our final meeting. Yeah. So normally our meeting is normally going to hit right during General Assembly. So what I can ask you guys, do you want to go 3 weeks out, or do you want to go, if we go after the assembly, we're taking our lives into our own hands on getting our certificates back. So I'm looking, do you guys think, could you guys pull off your final reports and be done by the 18th?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right, let's shoot for the 18th. That's a Monday. Okay. And if you're having issues, and I'll try to communicate via email, I'll try to do it once a week leading up to this, just as a reminder for you guys to get your papers done, get your reports done and get those in. But we will shoot for the 18th. All right. Best practice. I don't know how you guys work with procrastination, but I just pretend that my stuff's due next week, and then I got to get it done in the next week. And then if I get it done, good. I don't have to worry about it. But anyway, so let's shoot for that. And then what's going to happen is once I get all of your papers, I'll send it to Cleveland, and hopefully they'll get us our certificates back. I may end up giving them each of your addresses and having them mail it to each of your addresses, just in case I'm not able to get to you quickly to present it to you. Okay. All right. Well, let's close in prayer. All right. God,
Thank you,
thanks
Father.
for the last few moments that we've had together. God, thanks for the encouragement that you've given us. And God, as we were talking about this, I just prayed that we would open our ears and our eyes to look for the ways that you encourage us, Lord. And God, just help us to see the beauty in the things that you have created. And just help us to see those things that you've sent our way to let us know that we're called and that you have chosen us, Lord. God, I thank you. I thank you for this team. I thank you for these leaders who want to invest in young people. And I just ask that you would reward them for their faithfulness. God, I thank you. I give you praise. It's in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Sorry if you were at camp meeting last week that I didn't see you guys. Most of you, I wouldn't have seen the casters, but they have their own camp meeting. But for the rest of you, I'll be seeing you guys, and who knows, I may roll by McDonald's just to see Anita. So
You'll have to go to the Pike.
is that where you're at now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you guys, and we'll see you on the 18th. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.